Hi everyone. Welcome to week 5 of school and of philosophy. I hope that everyone is doing well and staying safe as usual. I hope that your semester is going well. We're about almost a month in, so I'm sure work is kicking up for everybody. So I hope that we're all handling that well and everyone's feeling good. So, last week we talked about Pascal's wager, and that was kind of the big thing. We also talked about Hayek's response to Pascal's wager. So if you didn't get the chance to watch that lecture, then you should definitely do that. And once you watch this, you will have turned in your paper proposals. So hopefully everybody got that turned in on time. And yeah. One thing that I am noticing with emails that I get before things are due is just be sure that you have read whatever the assignment was that I posted or emails that I sent out at the time, and also have watched the lectures, because not that I don't want your questions, because if you have a specific question is this a good idea or something like that, I definitely want to help you. But a lot of questions are answered by the assignment sheet or in previous lectures, so just be sure to stay on top of that because it makes it easier for all of us instead of me having to type the same thing over and over again. So, yes, that would be good. So, this week we are talking about belief. That's the topic of this week. Also, this doesn't matter, but I have had mask acne since March, and it just keeps getting worse. So sorry about this. I'm trying not to wear foundation because of all of the acne that I'm getting. So, anyways, ignore it. Not important. But it is annoying for me to see myself. But anyways, so for this lecture, we'll be covering W.K. Clifford and his position regarding belief. And we're actually kind of taking a different approach. So we've been focusing on philosophy of religion, as you all know. Gotta kill a bug. But today, we're going to be focusing on ethics within philosophy of religion. So, Clifford's paper is called The Ethics of Belief. So, instead of just theorizing about, God's existence or is it rational to believe, is it moral to believe? So, this is a pretty different question than what we've been dealing with. And it's a pretty interesting question because normally we don't think of personal beliefs that we hold as being harmful or morally wrong. We normally think naturally, I'm sure that you've thought more about it, but naturally we're probably people's beliefs, they're their own thing and whatever. And Clifford argues something much different, so it's very interesting. So just a little definition of ethics in general is that it's a branch of philosophy that deals with moral principles. So basically, right and wrong. That is primarily what ethics is dealing with. What is right and what is wrong to do, for people to do. So, as you could probably guess, this covers a multitude of topics. So, most things are moral questions, especially if you think about bringing ethics into present day, and everything going on in the media. Almost everything has a moral bent to it. So people are saying this is wrong that this is happening, or this is right. This is the right way to respond. And it's not talking about rationally right or rationally wrong. It's talking about you're a bad person if you do this, or you're a good person if you do this. So ethics is everywhere. everywhere. So it's important to to dive in. And we'll do more ethics later, I believe. Let's see. Yeah. Weeks 11 through 13 we'll be doing a lot of ethics. But this is where ethics and philosophy of religion coincide. So, just give a brief overview of the philosopher we're talking about. So, this is W.K. Clifford. He's from the 1800s, so 1845 to 1879. Yeah, so he died very young, now that I've written that out. Very young. He didn't even make it to 40. Sad. He was like 34. Not so good at math, but I think it's 34. Maybe. Yeah, 34. He was 34 when he died. That's very sad. But he was British. And once again, we have another mathematician, which, if you recall me saying earlier, mathematicians and philosophers used to be more of a similar field. Now, philosophy and mathematics seem kind of like totally different, opposing fields of study, but they used to be a lot more together. He was very smart. There's two main things that he's known for when it comes to his theories. So one is what is known as mind stuff, which sounds like it's made up. Just mind stuff. He just liked mind stuff. But what this meant, mind stuff he referred to as a moving molecule. So, sorry, I should rephrase this. This is an example of mind stuff. A moving molecule or... Ooh, when I first get started, then I always mess up my words and then I get mixed up. So, redo. A moving molecule of inorganic matter does not possess mind or consciousness, but it possesses a small piece of mind stuff. That's his theory. So, this accounts for there being intelligence in the world. Because if you don't believe in like the soul, which is what most philosophers before Clifford believed in, then you have to explain how we are capable of having intelligent thoughts and conversations and how our brain works, because it is uniquely different than other things. So the way that he explains this is by mind stuff. He says that like a small little molecule doesn't have mind or consciousness, but it possesses a small piece of mind stuff. So then whenever you put a bunch of those molecules together in the right way, then you get the mind. So he's not having a separation between mind, body, and soul. So Descartes, who we'll talk about later, he was one of the most famous dualists, believed in separation between the mind and the body. So the mind and the body are not dependent on one another. And for him, mind like includes the idea of soul and stuff. But someone like Hume, David Hume, who we've briefly mentioned in the past, he was from a similar time period, and he said that there was no separation between mind and body. So the body was basically all that there was. Physical matter was all that there was. But then you have a hard time explaining how we have intelligent thoughts, things like that. I mean, some people can, but Clifford kind of sidesteps this by using this concept of mind stuff. That molecules have the capacity to possess mind things. So whenever you put all those molecules together, once again, you get a real mind. And it's interesting, he also, this theory of his was influenced by Spinoza, who is from the modern period. He was from like the 1700s, maybe 1600s. And he said that everything that existed was God. So it's interesting that Spinoza influenced Clifford, but Clifford took what Spinoza said and just kind of took out the God part. So Spinoza said that, like, everything had divinity or whatever. So kind of instead of saying that, Clifford said everything has this mind stuff. So Spinoza would have said, yeah, that mind stuff is God. So that would be where the disagreement was. But Clifford is using Spinoza's ideas to develop his own. So that's kind of what's going on there. And his big thing is that mind is the one ultimate reality. So that mind is the end all be all. Mind is like the most important thing. It's the foundation of everything that exists, which is why mind stuff is so important to him. If you don't have mind stuff, then mind probably isn't going to be the ultimate reality because it's not within everything. But for him, it is. So he also had this concept of tribal self, which explains conscience and the moral law by the development in each individual of a self, which prescribes the conduct conducive to the welfare of the tribe. So Clifford also sidesteps another problem because, remember, he's coming from the modern era, so most people before him were Christians or they were Enlightenment thinkers. So he was kind of coming out of that, kind of opposing a lot of the Christian Catholic doctrines before him. So the Christian might say, how would you have a basis for right and wrong if everything is just matter, mind matter, and there isn't a standard for right and wrong? And he says, through his doctrine of tribal self, that there's that conscience and the moral law are developed in each individual because they're looking toward the welfare of the tribe. So every individual self is seeking the welfare of the tribe, of everyone that exists, which we'll see in his reading that he's very community driven. As in, he says that beliefs are common property, meaning we all have a responsibility to each other to have beliefs that are right, which is interesting. So those are the two things that he's most known for, mind stuff and tribal self, and we will even see those throughout the reading for this week. So we'll just dive in. We are reading The Ethics of Belief. Oh, I should have said tribal self. And now that I've written that, now I can delete or erase. The Ethics of Belief. So once again, the question before this, dealing with like Pascal, is it rational to believe in God? We are totally shifting gears and moving to, is it ethical to believe in God? So he starts out, Clifford does, by giving an example of this ship owner. So the ship owner is driving. Do you drive a boat? Steering? Do you drive? I don't know. Sailing a boat. We'll say that. Sailing a boat around the sea, and he has a bunch of people on the boat. And before he sets out, he understands that this boat is pretty old, and it's not very well built. It's been through a lot, and it's needed repairs. So he has these doubts, like maybe this is not gonna make it. So before he set off onto this ride, probably don't call it a ride either, this sail. before he set sail, he just kind of suppressed those doubts, and he felt better about it, and he just kind of got over it. He just kind of said, okay, the boat's been through a lot, she's made it through, so she'll probably make it through again. It's totally fine. So he has a bunch of families that he is sailing around. And unfortunately, this ship goes under. It fails, and then people die. So we have the big question. Is it true that he is guilty of the death of the people on the ship? Is it his fault? Clifford's argument is that though he believed, he made himself believe that the ship was okay, he did not have a right to believe that the ship was going to be okay based on the evidence that he had. He had no right. Not only was it irrational, but he did not have a right to believe that. And even though he made himself feel better about it and kind of thought through it, mostly he just suppressed his doubts. So he should be held responsible for that. So then he says, what if we change the case a little bit and we say that the ship actually made it safely? Does this change the responsibility of the owner or the guilt of the owner? The answer is no. Because even though the ship made it safely, the evidence that the ship owner had still showed that he should not trust it. So he should still be responsible for putting these people in danger. So the big thing from the ship is that the ship owner had no right to believe on such evidence as was before him. That's the big idea of the ship example. And it's important to note that he didn't acquire this belief in the soundness of the ship by really investigating and testing his doubts, but he only got to that belief by stifling or suppressing his doubts. So, let's see. I know I'm missing something, sorry. Okay. One thing that is important is that Clifford states that when an action is done, it is right or wrong forever. So no matter whether it turns out well or it turns out poorly, the consensus is that it's right or it's wrong, and nothing's going to change that. So the effects of your belief doesn't change the morality or the ethics of your belief. So, the question of right or wrong has nothing to do with the origin of belief. Sorry. It does have to do with the origin of belief, not the matter of it. So, we should say this. The question of right or wrong has to do with the origin of the belief, not the matter of it. So it has to do with what's going on in your mind. Like I said, the effects of it, whether the boat is successful and arrives safely or not, doesn't have to do with whether your belief is right or wrong. So, the existence of a belief not founded on fair inquiry unfits a man for the performance of this necessary duty. So, if you are going to be fit for a duty, then your belief should be founded on fair inquiry. So you need to search your mind and, I was going to say heart, but your heart doesn't really matter, I guess, in this scenario. And investigate your doubts. Make sure that you're not believing false things. And then you'll be fit to go. But if you don't do that, then you are unfit. So, this is a big point that no real belief is insignificant. Can we see this? No, we can't. No real belief is insignificant. So, we might say that and believe that, just yeah, that sounds about right. Belief matters. What you believe is important, everything like that. But he says that no real belief is insignificant. So, even the smallest ones that we don't regard as being much of anything, those are still important. So, and because of that, or it's because even the small, insignificant beliefs prepare us to receive more beliefs. So if I have this small, seemingly insignificant belief, then I probably have other beliefs founded upon that. So if I have this small little bitty one, and then I maybe have another belief on top of that, and then a belief that's pretty significant on top of that, and then I keep piling it on, then this little tiny, seemingly insignificant belief actually becomes very important to everything that I believe. So, let me think of an example. Okay, I believe that my right eye sees properly. That's just a belief that I hold. I think that that's true. Well, with glasses, I believe that my right eye sees correctly. Obviously, it doesn't without glasses. I wouldn't be wearing them. So, that doesn't sound like it carries much moral weight, really. But if I believe that about my right eye, and I'm just saying right eye because it makes it seem more insignificant than if I said both my eyes. Say that I am walking to the grocery store and I see somebody, I feel like I've used this example before, somebody running out the grocery store with I don't know. What can you steal from the grocery store these days? That's important. A TV. Somehow he got out with the TV. Or she. Maybe it's a woman thief. Who knows? This person is running, and I catch it with my right eye. So now, if I become a witness for this crime, what I'm about to say is based on my belief that my right eye sees accurately. Because if I didn't believe that, then I wouldn't be able to trust what I had seen. So, that's kind of a silly example. But, hopefully it shows or demonstrates how, things that seem insignificant that we believe actually probably hold more weight than we would think. I'm trying to think of another example. I probably can't. Okay, how about this? So, I believe that I own this water bottle. I believe that. So say, I'm getting creative. Say that I get kidnapped. Wait. This isn't going to work. I'm trying to come up with some CSI example. Say that... How about this? Let me change this. Okay. Redo. Say that... This is not true. This is actually mine. But say that I believe that this little notebook is my husband's. And then he doesn't come home from work one day. And then I don't see the notebook around here. And then I go to someone that we thought was our friend's house. And I see that notebook. So my belief that that notebook is my husband's, all of a sudden now I'm starting to, based on that belief, have another belief that maybe these people that we thought were our friends are actually kidnapping my husband. That's extra silly, but that's an even more insignificant belief that could, become something. Anyways, got on a little bit of a tangent, but hopefully that helps illustrate something for you. Yeah, so for Clifford, every belief is essentially moral. There's a moral component to every belief that you have. Doesn't seem to me that there's a moral component to believing whether that notebook is my husband's or not, but for Clifford, every belief has a moral component. So this is where it gets interesting, because he says, no man's belief is in any case a private matter which concerns himself alone. Which, maybe you agree with this, maybe I agree with this. I don't really know. I just haven't thought about that. Like, that there's no belief that you hold that is strictly personal. And this is where he gets into, this very community-minded thing. Like, we're all sharing in each other's beliefs. So we all have responsibility for each other's beliefs, which is interesting. Yeah, because typically I would think of my beliefs as affecting me and maybe the people close to me, like in relationship, not in proximity. And I think he would say that beliefs affect everyone around you. Because there's a moral component to your beliefs, morality typically affects those around you, right and wrong. So because there's a morality component to every belief, no belief can be strictly personal because no belief is dealing only with yourself. I think is what he would try and say. Because if it was only personal, then it probably wouldn't be moral, because it wouldn't really matter if it was right or wrong if it only affected you. So he says that our lives are guided by that general conception of the course of things which has been created by society for social purposes. So our beliefs are social in nature. So this is where it gets really interesting again. Our words, our phrases, our forms and processes and modes of thought are common property. So the things that I believe don't only belong to me. They belong to everyone around me. Just come on, join in my beliefs. They're yours too. We're all sharing this pot of commonly shared, or not even shared beliefs, but beliefs that we all have property over. Or I should say, we all have ownership over. So, for good or ill is, these beliefs are, or let me rephrase this. Basically, I wrote this down actually better. She's a little all over the place tonight. Don't mind me. So let me back up a little bit. Belief, as defined by Clifford, is a sacred faculty which prompts the decisions of our will and knits into harmonious working all the compacted energies of our being. It is not for ourselves, but for humanity. So our beliefs are not for ourselves. So if you really hash out something that you believe in and you consider all the doubts, all the possibilities, you doing that is not for yourself. And it's not only for your family or for your close friends. That's for all of humanity. So there's this deep connection with all of humanity that Clifford is operating under the premise of. Which is why, as we said at the beginning, tribal self is one of his most famous and most fundamental theories. That the self works towards the welfare of the tribe, and that's how we know what is right or wrong. So, let me write his definition of belief. Belief is a sacred faculty which prompts the decisions of our will. So, how Clifford defines belief is something that prompts our decisions. So, it's pretty active. It's a pretty active definition of belief because it's not just you hold this idea about something or this opinion. Belief is strictly a faculty that prompts decision making. So, it's active in nature. It's not passive. So, once again, it's not for ourselves, but for humanity. It's rightly used on truths which have been established by long experience in waiting, toil, and which have stood in the fierce light of free and fearless questioning. So, to question your beliefs is good for Clifford. Very good. So, not only is it good to question your beliefs, but there is a universal... I never like this angle whenever I turn around like that. Okay. Universal duty of questioning all that we believe. So you may have heard from people before, hey, you should really think about that belief that you hold, question it, it'll make you stronger in the end. It'll make your belief stronger, or it'll change and that'll be a good thing for you. So instead of that kind of mentality, Clifford is saying that as a human being, you have a responsibility and a duty to question all of your beliefs. Very strong statement. We don't take anything for granted. We question everything. And it's a duty to everyone. Why? Because we're in this community of people and beliefs are common property. Because of that, we have a responsibility to our fellow neighbors to question what we believe and to have firm foundations for why we believe what we believe. He says that it is the sense of power attached to a sense of knowledge that makes men desirous of believing and afraid of doubting. So we want power that comes from knowledge, which is why a lot of times humans will not question what they believe, or are afraid to doubt what they believe. So if you meet someone and you try and talk to them about their worldview and they just won't have any of it, Clifford would make the argument that they want the power of the knowledge that comes from not doubting. So, he argues that every time we let ourselves believe for unworthy reasons, so every time we don't have sufficient evidence to believe something, we weaken our powers of self-control, doubting, fairly weighing our evidence, which is not good. So he's making it very essential to human beings to doubt. That's what makes human beings different from, say, I don't know, animals. Humans have the faculty of belief, meaning they have the faculty of doubt, of judgment, judging whether what they believe is true or not. And all those things we owe to our fellow neighbor to do rightly, to handle rightly. So, then he makes the argument that the danger to society regarding ungrounded beliefs is not that it should believe wrong things, though that is great enough, but the danger is that it should become credulous and lose the habit of testing things and inquiring into them. So if a society becomes very believable, like everybody kind of believes what each other is saying, that is more dangerous than people just believing the wrong thing. Because if the society starts to trust each other without questioning things, then he says the society will sink back into savagery. So you become less and less human, less and less intellectually capable, the fewer times that you question what you believe. And if a society as a whole doesn't question what they believe and test things, then that is the greatest danger to that society. So one of my favorite things about this article, or article, paper, whatever, by Clifford is how very, very clear he is about what he's saying. So I love this because you don't have to guess, like, oh, I wonder what he's saying. It is very evident. I'll give an example. First of all, he says to sum up a few times, which I love, because philosophers love clarity, and he's very clear. He says, to sum up, this is the best. This is so clear. He says, it is wrong always. Always. He's a very passionate man. Always, everywhere. Always, everywhere. And for anyone to believe anything upon insufficient evidence. So, it says, all right, I'm about, I don't know, nearing the halfway point. Let me sum up and just make it clear in case you forgot. My main point is, it is wrong, always, everywhere, and for anyone to believe anything upon insufficient evidence. He says wrong. He doesn't say irrational. It is wrong. Morally wrong. So, like we would say, it's morally wrong to murder someone. Maybe I shouldn't use that example. It's a little extreme. But he's very passionate. Maybe he would use that example. That type of morality is what he's talking about. It is wrong to do this. You are harming people if you do this, if you believe based on insufficient evidence. So, just a quick quick little circle back to Pascal, he admits that he doesn't have sufficient evidence. And he says that that's okay because it makes sense, it's rational to bet that God is real, even though we can't necessarily prove it with evidence. So Clifford would despise that. He'd probably, if he read it, he probably did despise it. Not his thing. He is not a fan. He wants evidence. Evidence, evidence, evidence. And if you, just a quick side note, we're not going to read William James's paper, just because I wanted to make sure we got to Plantinga. I said that weird, Plantinga. But if you're interested, William James has, right after this in the book, William James writes about basically arguing the opposite that Clifford is saying. So if you're interested, you should totally read that. That would make for a great paper too. So he says that believing wrongly is a sin against mankind. That's pretty big. That's a pretty big claim. So believing wrongly doesn't only make you not smart or make you not wise, but it is a crime against mankind to believe wrong things. Fascinating. So that's his argument to start. Now he has to clarify a few things, because the next question would be, okay, if we're supposed to question everything that we believe, wouldn't we just be skeptics, doubting everything all the time, and not wanting to make any claims about things because we don't want to be wrong? He says, no, we shouldn't be skeptics. That would be silly. So he says that beliefs about right and wrong don't need to be propped up by faith or whatever. We can have reason to believe something based on experience, and then something's based not on experience. So we have to get to, can we trust other people? Can I trust my doctor about medical stuff when I don't know anything about medical stuff? Is that ethical to believe? Then he gives us three criteria in order to believe someone. So, and he says testimony. Testimony is just like what another person said. It's not really a technical term. Okie dokie. So he says, in what cases is the testimony of a man worthy of belief? In what cases is... The first one is veracity. So, or sorry, I should say in what's the criteria, but I'm sure you get the point. Veracity is important. For him, veracity refers to someone trying to speak the truth. So if you know that someone is not, it's just I don't know, a liar, then they won't meet the criteria of veracity. They won't be a truth teller. So you need somebody who's going to be telling the truth. Or trying to. Obviously, sometimes you'll say something you won't realize at the time, but it was actually wrong, but you were trying to tell the truth, but you were wrong. So, first, we just need somebody who's really trying to tell the truth. Next, this person needs to know something. So it's not enough that they just want to be telling the truth. They need to know something. So, like a doctor, they have studied for like, I don't know, a billion years to know what they know. So they've had the opportunities to gain the knowledge about doctor stuff, medical stuff. So when I go there, one of the reasons that I can trust the doctor sometimes, I don't know, maybe you don't trust doctors, is because they have had the opportunity to gain knowledge about the topic, and I have not. So knowledge is just opportunities to know the truth. Then the third criteria is judgment. Judgment is basically just making proper use of your knowledge. So if my doctor went to medical school and like was there to gain all the knowledge, but then took that knowledge and applied it wrongly, then that wouldn't fit the criteria of judgment, so we wouldn't trust them. So I'm trying to think of an example. Clifford uses the example of a chemist. And he says that if you can believe the chemist if he says, like, I don't know, stuff that's true about chemistry. But if he just says that an atom of oxygen has existed unaltered in weight and rate of vibration throughout all time, all of a sudden he has lost his authority, because there is no way that this person could know this without ceasing to be a man. He could have had an inference about this, but there's no way he could know that for sure. So I can't trust that. So if, say I go to the doctor and the doctor says, this is going to be weird, that I am actually, I don't know why the doctor would say this, never mind, I'm thinking of weird examples. Say I go to the eye doctor, and the eye doctor is like, your eye, I'm literally making this up and it's very silly, that your eye was actually someone else's eye. And why would they ever say this? I don't know, just imagine that I have someone else's eye, okay, this doesn't make sense, I'm horrible at examples, clearly. The point is that you shouldn't trust people who say something that they have no way of knowing, or that they would have to cease to be a man in order to know, as per Clifford's language. So even if that chemist really, really thinks that it's true that this atom of oxygen has never been altered in any way throughout all of time, even if that's the case, he can't really know that. So that gives reason to not believe him. That's him using poor judgment. So then he makes sure to clarify, like, he talks about a medicine man in Central Africa who basically, like, tells the people a bunch of things that are not true. And the people have believed this medicine man for a very long time. Basically, you don't believe stuff just because people before you have for a long time. That's the gist of the medicine man thing. He says that the combined testimony of our neighbors in our society is subject to the same conditions as the testimony of any one of them. So just because, like, everybody in your neighborhood believes this one thing doesn't mean, and has for years and years and years. Like, say that your entire neighborhood is very set on believing that Bigfoot lives in the neighborhood. Just because that's the case doesn't mean that you should believe it. And the testimony of your whole neighborhood saying that still needs to be doubted and questioned, just as only one person had said it. So having more and more people say something doesn't necessarily make it stronger. All right, so moving on. We have to ask how far. So we know that experience isn't going to explain everything. So the question is basically, oh, I thought I said it right there. In what cases may we believe that goes beyond our experience? So some cases are going to go beyond our experience. And in some cases, we're allowed to, or we're justified in believing that, and in some cases, we're not. So how do we tell which case is too far beyond our experience? So he comes to this notion of the uniformity in nature. So things kind of go by some sort of uniformity within nature. I can expect an experience to be like the experience before. So if I touch fire, then the next time I'm around fire, I can expect that fire to be hot because there's some uniformity of nature that shows that this experience is probably going to be similar to the one before it. So that's kind of the big thing. He explains it for a minute, but the main idea is that no evidence can justify us in believing the truth of a statement which is contrary to or outside of the uniformity of nature. Okay, so we have 3 main points that Clifford has shown us throughout this paper. We have, first of all, and he sums it up at the end, it's so nice. Like, I wish everybody was this clear. The paper starts with, it is wrong in all cases. Well, we'll just sum it up how he sums it up. So he kind of goes backwards. He works backwards. So, we may believe what goes beyond our experience only when it is inferred from that experience by the assumption that what we do not know is like what we do know. So, I don't know about that fire over there, but I do know about the fire that was over there, and it was really hot, so I could probably assume that one's really hot too. That's an example. So that's one thing that we learn. Another thing we learn is that we may believe the statement of another person, this is about testimony, when there is reasonable ground for supposing that he knows the matter of which he speaks, and that he is speaking the truth so far as he knows it. So we can trust another's testimony as long as there's reasonable ground for supposing that that person actually knows what they're talking about and that they're telling the truth, that they're not lying. And then finally, we get to the big thesis. He's so clear about this. He says, it is wrong in all cases to believe on insufficient evidence, and where it is presumption to doubt, to investigate, there it is worse than presumption to believe. So, it's better to presume something than it is to fully believe it. So, main idea, doubt everything but don't be a skeptic. That's kind of the gist. And he really doesn't say much about religion in this. This is in the philosophy of religion, but he doesn't really address religion head on. But this paper is seen as a critique of religion because, as we saw in Pascal's Wager, and William James in the next paper, in this chapter, they both are saying that it's okay to believe without 100% evidence. And Clifford is not like that, as we said. He's very specific. We don't love that. So, even though he doesn't directly address religion, that's like, I don't know, probably his point is that people typically believe in religion based on insufficient evidence in his eyes. So you need sufficient evidence. So he wasn't a big God guy, not a big God guy. So yeah, that basically sums everything up. And next week we'll talk about Alvin. Not next week. Next lecture. Oh, next lecture is our Zoom meeting. So at our scheduled class time, we'll just hop on. We'll make sure we're all on the same page with the course. If you have any questions that have just been plaguing you, bring them. We'll chat. We'll discuss. And it'll be fun just to see how everybody's doing. So have a good few days, and I will see you on Thursday. And we'll be talking about Alvin Plantinga.